owner tried the move on a Vietnamese tourist who bought a phone for his girlfriend. The man, a factory worker who claimed to make just $200 US a month, broke down in tears and actually got down on his knees, begging the shop to refund him. Video of the incident went viral, prompting some kind Singaporeans to raise funds to cover the man's losses. What's more, the name and home address of the unscrupulous salesman, Jover Chow Henderson wrote, was posted on the web alongside some less than flattering pics.
Resume securing the container once the threat is neutralized. Cease securing the room. Hostile activity. Neutralize the threat. Down to one friendly.
Busted!
Aussie teen hops into croc-infested waters for a date with a girl. The lengths to which some guys are willing to go to impress girls. Sinking its teeth into his left arm, the 3.5-meter-long crocodile pulled the teen 6 meters out, preparing to deliver a fatal death roll. The thought at the top of his mind at the time.
I was singing, I'm gone. I'm gone for sure.
His adrenaline surging and thinking he was a goner, DePau instinctively punched the reptile in the snout, then gouged it in the eye, a move that caused the croc to release its grip. With his arm fractured and useless, DePau then used his good arm to get to shore, miraculously surviving the attack. He suffered 2 broken bones and 2 nasty gashes in his left arm. But after undergoing surgery, doctors were able to save it. Not only that, but the cocksure teen also managed to secure a movie date with the blonde backpacker he so desperately wanted to impress. Though a wildly stupid move, he probably won't have much left to prove when it comes to trying to woo the women he fancies in the future. At least let's hope so. Those bite marks kind of say it all. Asked by 9 News for his final thoughts on the matter to anyone who thinks he's an idiot.
Hey guys, I'm Kai, and on this supersized edition of How to Kill, we're taking down the king of the monsters himself, the Japanese giant known as Godzilla. Since he burst into the scene in 1954, Godzilla has gone from nuclear nightmare to kid-friendly superhero, and he's gotten his fair share of scars along the way. But what would it take to topple this radioactive reptile once and for all? Well, they say he's gotta go, so pick up a bus and throw it back down, because today we're gonna tell you how to kill Godzilla. Over the last 60 years, Godzilla has appeared in over 30 movies and countless cartoons, video games, and comics, including one where he went to hell without dying. He's fought King Kong, Killer Moth, and Matthew Broderick. Perhaps his greatest foe.
That's a lot of fish.
But it almost didn't happen because Godzilla definitively died in his first appearance at the hands of a superweapon called the Oxygen Destroyer. The Toho Company's original Gojira film is a far cry from the cuddly cartoon character Godzilla would become. Made less than a decade after the end of World War II, director Ishiro Honda envisioned his monster as a living embodiment of the atomic bomb, an unthinkable, unstoppable, nuclear-powered nightmare. When Godzilla awakens from his slumber and makes his way to the Japanese mainland, their best and brightest scientists struggle to find a way to stop it. Bullets and bombs just bounce off him, death charges do nothing, and when they set up a massive electric fence on the coastline, Godzilla just pulls the spinning high-tension wires down. There's only one weapon that can kill this colossal kaiju, but its creator, Dr. Serizawa, is terrified of the devastation his Oxygen Destroyer would unleash. I don't know what's in the skeletons, but I mean, hey, I'm not a scientist. I don't have a cool eye patch either. Yet.
tech to stop the hostiles from securing the container. One friendly remaining.
Yes. After witnessing the destruction Godzilla inflicts on Tokyo, Serizawa is finally convinced to use his super weapon. He straps on a scuba suit and activates the destroyer on the ocean floor, disintegrating Godzilla and sacrificing himself in the process.
Mission failed. All friendlies were eliminated.
Serizawa's secrets died with him, and it's a shame because just 1 year later, a brand new Godzilla emerged from the sea to stomp through Osaka. Luckily, the Air Force was able to trap him in an iceberg and drop a mountain on him. But it was only a temporary fix. Godzilla would return again and again and again, and as even worse monsters reared their ugly heads, Godzilla became humanity's protector. Throughout the 60s and 70s, the fearsome king of the monsters kind of lost his edge. Becoming a dad will do that to you, I guess. The series' popularity started to wane, so in 1984, Toho rebooted Godzilla into a towering terror once more.
To locate the biohazard container.
He was bigger, badder, and a whole lot tougher, but he had one fatal flaw, a broken heart. Godzilla actually dies twice in the Heisei-era Godzilla films, but only one of them sticks. In Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, the Big G faces off against a new version of his robot doppelganger, which actually manages to kill him with a barrage of lasers, paralyzer missiles, and electric shocks that destroy the second brain Godzilla keeps in his butt. For safekeeping.
5 seconds before insertion. Proceed to the biohazard container and secure it.
Fortunately, Rodan was able to resurrect him, but this does count as a death even if it doesn't last long. The big guy died for good in 1995's Godzilla vs. Destroyer, where he battles a byproduct of Serizawa's long-lost oxygen destroyer, hence the name. Destroyer isn't actually the one who does him in, though. After years on the rampage, a nuclear reactor that is Godzilla's heart is undergoing a catastrophic meltdown, threatening to blow up the entire planet. The body of burning Godzilla is glowing with red radioactive energy, and he uses his new power to defeat Destroyer just before his heart finally gives out. The resulting fallout decimates Tokyo, but his son sucks it all up and survives to carry on his father's lumbering legacy. After they killed Godzilla, Toho took a break from the franchise. But over in America, TriStar Pictures was working on a reboot that would surely blow the doors off the box office and usher in a new era of monster madness in the States. Yeah, no, that didn't happen. 1998's Godzilla died at the box office, and the titular star died after a barrage of plain old missiles. Where do I begin with Roland Emmerich's ill-fated 1998 Godzilla movie? Its annoying ad campaign that took shots at Jurassic Park? The extremely obnoxious characters who are joking and quipping as Godzilla rains death and destruction on New York City?
Oh, if you look at this, he trashed the garden. Oh, man, now I'm pissed.
Literally not the time for jokes.
Whoa. This is where the Knicks like get showered and everything.
The way Emmerich included obvious parodies of Siskel and Ebert as a you for giving his terrible movies terrible reviews.
The emptiness of Godzilla was one of the worst achievements, if you can call it that, of the year.
I'm with you there, Gene.
Look, the film has a lot of problems, but none bigger than the big guy himself, or herself in this case. 1998's Godzilla was slimmer and smaller than her Japanese cousin. She looked like a iguana crossed with a raptor rendered with the best CGI 1998 had to offer, which wasn't all that great.
What are you doing?
She could sprint and burrow through the city streets, but she lacked her namesake's awe-inspiring presence, which is why fans mockingly dubbed her Gino, or Godzilla in name only. Ouch. The producers took the monster out of King of the Monsters, robbing her of Godzilla's trademark atomic breath and rendering her vulnerable to standard-issue army weapons. Matthew Broderick and his little pals managed to trap her in the cables of the Brooklyn Bridge, where she bleeds to death after a barrage of plain old missiles. That's right, not a superweapon, ancient evil, or alien technology. Just $40 million worth of taxpayer-funded firepower. I'm not impressed, guys. I'm not even against the idea of missiles killing Godzilla, but they've got to be special, like the killer drillers that took him down in 2001. Toho was deeply embarrassed by the 1998 movie, so much so that they actually brought the American Zilla back in their rejuvenated Japanese series, just so she could get completely murked by the real Godzilla in like 20 seconds. Standalone films, but they couldn't resist giving the Big G a huge power upgrade. In Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All-Out Attack, which, by the way, is the greatest movie title ever, the original Godzilla is resurrected by the vengeful souls of innocents killed during World War II. Earth's Guardian Kaiju team up to stop him, but the fatal blow comes from special missiles designed to drill through Godzilla's hide. They open up a hole in his chest that prevents him from unleashing his atomic breath, and with no way to release the pressure, Godzilla explodes in a burst of radioactive energy.
Doorway, trap. Stay clear of blast. Device primed. Keep an eye on door. Stand clear of window. Doorway trap. Stay clear of blast zone.
Op 4 found a biohazard container.
Reload.
4, last operator standing. Friendly
Leaving only his
victorious.
disembodied
Hostile
heart on the
eliminated.
ocean floor. One problem, it's still beating. Check the heart, guys. Each incarnation of Godzilla is less vulnerable than the last, and even his most recent sightings have proven tough to take down. In 2014, America finally got a proper badass version to call its own, and the heroic MonsterVerse Godzilla lived to fight another day. Presumably against the king-size Kong from Skull Island. Back in Japan, Toho returned with Shin Godzilla, a terrifying new incarnation who reflected the fears of a post-Fukushima world. The government was able to get their shit together in time to drop a few buildings on him and pump some coagulant down his throat, but all that did was freeze the god of destruction, leaving him standing tall in the middle of Tokyo. And I do mean tall because at 389 feet, this was the biggest Godzilla we'd ever seen, at least until the anime that came out the next year. In the post-apocalyptic Planet of the Monsters, Godzilla has driven humanity away from Earth. 20,000 years later, returning soldiers managed to trap Godzilla and penetrate his shield with EMP probes.
Nicely done. The biohazard container has been located.
Only to learn the monster they just imploded was a much smaller clone after the real deal bursts from the ground and wrecks all their shit. We'll see how that saga plays out in the coming years, as well as whatever the MonsterVerse has in store for us. But whether he's a hero, a villain, a stomper, or a savior, Godzilla is one of the most memorable monsters in all of cinema. And, as history shows, again and again, he's damn hard to kill. Thanks for watching. Now I want to know, who's your favorite kaiju Godzilla's ever faced? Sige?
Cowabunga, dudes. I'm Moose, and this week on How to Kill, we're tackling...
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Hey guys, I'm Kaya, and we're
gonna need a bigger boat.
just when you
Hostile
think it's
activity.
safe to go back
Neutralize
into
the threat.
order, Sharkwood reminds us of the
Secure the
deadly
room.
horrors
Protect
of
the
what
biocontainer. Op 4 last stop standing. Op 4 eliminated. Friendly mission successful.
In 1975, Steven Spielberg's landmark blockbuster Jaws. Turn up the chop, shut down the beaches, and remounted. Because this is How to Kill. Okay, so that's not the shark's name, but How to Kill Bruce just wouldn't have the same impact, and neither would the original ending from Peter Benchley's book. In the novel, the great fish just kind of dies from blood loss and exhaustion. It's not exactly cinematic, which is why Spielberg himself came up with a more explosive ending, where Jaws is obliterated by a punctured scuba tank. The residents of Amity Island have their hands full with the giant great white shark that's terrorizing the town. Swimmers are getting gobbled left and right. The mayor refuses to close the beaches.
Barricade the room. We need to protect the biohazard container.
those times, how I wonder what
Op 4 located the biohazard container.
above so high, like a
Op 4 drone has located the
diamond
biohazard
in
container.
the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder how.
Op 4 is securing the biohazard container. Intervene immediately. Op 4 secured the container. Mission failed. You need to locate the biohazard container. Nicely done. The biohazard container has been located.
Wow. Wow.
10 seconds before insertion. 5 seconds before insertion. Biohazard container located. Proceed to its location.
He finally convinces the town to give 10 grand to Quint, a full-service shark hunter. What's a half-service shark hunter? Does he just, like, catch it and, like, cut it and then let it go and be like, that's all I'm here for? And together with oceanographer Matt Hooper, the three men set sail aboard the Orca to put an end to the feeding frenzy. Plan A involves sticking the shark with a bunch of harpoons attached to floating barrels. Shoot! The additional drag should, in theory, tire him out and make him an easy hook, but Jaws is just too powerful. For Plan B, B is for Bruce, Hooper descends to the depths in an attempt to poison the prehistoric predator, but the fish makes quick work of the so-called shark-proof cage. As the boat is sinking, Hooper is in hiding and Quint is in the early stages of digestion. Birdie remembers some handy-dandy foreshadowing.
Damn it, Martin. You screw around with these tanks and they're gonna blow up.
He stuffs a scuba tank in the shark's mouth and climbs the mast in a last-ditch effort to survive. His harpoon stabs have no effect, so in a final act of desperation, he grabs Quint's trusty M1 Garand and fires a round directly into the pressurized tank, setting off a massive explosion that decimates the aquatic menace.
Fire, you son of a...
Now, as we all learned from Mythbusters, this actually wouldn't work in real life. Even with armor-piercing rounds, the air inside the tank doesn't explode, it just rockets out of the hole. Adam and Jamie may have busted the ending, but Spielberg busted the block. Jaws basically gave birth to summer event film and set the template for future franchises to follow, right down to the string of sequels with a steady decline in quality, starting with Jaws 2, where a brand new shark gets toasted in the ultimate fish fry. Spielberg immediately turned down the opportunity to direct
My diamond. My diamond.
the sequel to Jaws, since he had such a miserable time making the first one that he refused to go through that nightmare again.
This is my second day at sea, and I have 54 more days to go. And if I survive this, I'll have learned a lot.
Still, there was money to be made, so Universal proceeded without him. Jaws 2 was originally going to be a World War II flashback about Quint's harrowing experience on the USS Indianapolis, but we had to wait 38 years for Nick Cage to make a definitive film on that subject. Instead, the final film turned out to be basically just a rehash of the first one. Another shark attacks Amity, the mayor is skeptical, so Brody has to kill it. At least the shark is a little more aggro this time. Spielberg kept the creature hidden throughout Jaws to hide the unconvincing and barely working mechanical models, which is also why the movie is so scary. But for the sequel, the shark is front and center from the start, and it's not just attacking dogs and kids this time, it swims fast enough to feast on a water skier and goes after the boat that pulls her too. When the driver fights back with the flare gun, the resulting explosion leaves the shark horribly scarred. Animal abuse. The injuries don't seem to slow it down, though. I mean, it doesn't have any trouble eating a helicopter.
Drone located the biohazard container. Seconds to insertion. Down to 5 seconds. Op 4 drone has located the biohazard container.
corners Brody and his son on a tiny island that houses an electrical relay station. After some wholesome bonding, Brody tries to pull in the helpless kids but snags an underwater cable instead. And when he baits the shark into biting it, Jaws is fatally electrocuted. Shocking, Jaws 2 actually made a ton of money despite not being all that great. In 1978, the opening was then whopping $1 million. Another sequel and Jaws 3 an edible explosive. The amount of shark experience by were pushing the which is why the third Jaws film was pitched as a comedy called Jaws 3 People Zero. Sadly, we never got to see the John Hughes written spoof because the studio had a different gimmick in mind to keep the franchise fresh, like sushi. Thanks to the popularity of VCRs and video rentals, Hollywood went through a huge 3D phase in the early 80s. From Friday the 13th to the Amityville Horror, studios thought 3D would put butts in theater seats and squeeze a few more bucks out of tired franchises. Jaws 3D was no exception. Amity Island gets a much-needed break in this installment, which takes place at SeaWorld instead. Brody's sons help capture a baby great white that infiltrated the amusement park, and if you've seen Blackfish, you shouldn't be too surprised to learn it dies in captivity. Then, the baby's pissed-off mother breaches the gates and wreaks havoc on the resort. An asshole shark hunter tries to take her out with a grenade, but the Jaws clamp down before he set it off, leaving her free to feast on friendly dolphins. Fortunately, she never swallowed the grenade, giving Mike the opportunity to pull the pin and send a shower of shark parts just blasting out of the screen, including the titular Jaws. Grenades are also known to be effective against sharks in real life, or at least real life by way of Universal Studios. In Jaws the Ride, Amity sightseeing boats are equipped with military surplus grenade launchers, which come in handy when the shark attacks your tour. Some electric wire weakens it a la Jaws 2, but it takes a precision shot from your friendly skipper to put it down for good. Anyways, back to Jaws 3D. The shark blows up, everyone rejoices, the dolphins do some tricks, the end. It would have been a fine send-off for the franchise, but they couldn't resist one more bite. And in Jaws the Revenge, the colossal creature can only be stopped by some reckless ramming. This didn't make it into the final cut, but originally they were going to explain the Brody's unlikely encounters with sharks as a result of a voodoo curse, because science. Hence why Brody's widow, Ellen, has an unexplained psychic connection to the beast, and why it follows her to the Bahamas after it kills one of her sons. I don't know what it would have done if she had moved to, like, Nebraska, but then she might have never gotten her revenge. Fun fact, this is the movie that coined the tagline,
This time, it's personal.
So, with some help from her friends Michael Caine and Mario Van Peebles, Ellen is able to confuse the shark with electrical impulses, call on the spirit of Roy Scheider, and fatally impale it on the shattered prow of the boat. In the original cut, Jaws bled to death, kind of like the book. But after the American audience responded negatively, the producers added a big old explosion for foreign distribution. Beyond that, the film is... mostly known for two things. It's the basis for the Nintendo Jaws game, where the final boss fight plays out in a similar fashion, and it's the source for a famous Michael Caine quote. He said he's never seen the film, but... I've seen that film, and it's great. Despite the lackluster legacy of sequels,
Hello.
Only operator remaining.
What up?
Jaws fundamentally changed the way films are made. And while the sharks might not measure up to the monsters like the Meg, and Samuel L. Jackson never taught them to swim backwards, they helped give birth to the concept of a blockbuster, and kickstarted our obsession with killer sharks. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I want to know, what is your favorite scary fish movie? There's plenty to pick from. There's Sharknado, Jaws 3D, Piranha 3D. Let me know in the comments below. Follow us on Twitter at NowNerdOfficial. And as always, please subscribe to Now This Nerd. Now I want to know, who was your favorite kaiju?
Op 4 eliminated all friendlies.
Cowabunga, dudes. I'm Moose, and this week on How to Kill, we're tackling our very first ninja. But not just any ninja. I'm talking about the leader of the Fearsome Foot Clan himself, Oroku Saki, aka the Shredder. Ever since the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles debut in 1984, the Shredder has been a serious thorn in their shells. And every time the tubular teens think he's gone for good, he returns to wreak havoc on New York City. So, gas up the party wagon, crack open some moves, and don't even think about anchovies. Because today, we're going to show you how to kill Shredder. Turtle creators Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird had no idea how iconic their evil ninja would become. The idea came to Eastman after he looked at one of those big-ass cheese graters and thought, wouldn't this be cool on a bad guy's arms? He called him the Great Man and the Grater before Laird stepped in and suggested Shredder. Thank you, Peter. But even with all the elements in place for an arch nemesis, the creators killed him off in his very first appearance. And yet, the Shredder still reared his spiky head in nearly every adaptation that followed. So, for this How to Kill, we're going to run through how he's died in each medium, starting with the comics. In the shockingly violent first issue of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Splinter's ninja teens face off with their sensei's sworn enemy,
Locate and defuse a bomb. Diffuser dropped. We need to secure the device. Move the bomb location with the diffuser. Lost the diffuser. Go back and retrieve the device. Diffuser acquired. We've located a bomb. Move to its location and plant the diffuser.
Remove the cage.
We dropped the diffuser. Go back and retrieve the device.
join me in Fortnite or you gonna play that?
No. I don't play Fortnite anymore.
You might think that pilots are the most diligent and careful people in the world, but everybody makes mistakes from time to time. So let's fasten our seatbelts and go through the 10 worst mistakes pilots have. Number 10, the Southwest pilot ranter. The only difference that separates this pilot from your average sexist homophobe is that the average guy has the common decency not to broadcast his views. Captain James Taylor was a Southwest Airlines pilot that made headlines back in 2011 for accidentally broadcasting a conversation he had after his headpiece got stuck on broadcast. In his enlightening speech, James talked about his past 6 months of unsuccessful courtship, openly discussing his views on gays, grannies, and grandes, which I can only assume is something quite insensitive. Here's a few of the highlights from his tirade.
11 out of 12. There's 12 flight attendants, individual, never the same flight attendant twice. 11 over the top homosexuals and a granny. 11. I mean, think of the odds of that. I thought I was in Chicago, which was Partyland. After that, it was just a continuous stream of gays and grannies and grandes. Well, I don't give a I hate 100% of their.
But to top it all off, he later went on to complain about his co-worker who refused to go on a date with him, and an instance where 2 chicks refused to sleep with him after an assumingly lovely night of racist rants. This little speech was broadcast over the air traffic
Injected directly into the flesh by long fangs, needle-sharp harpoons, by tentacles, or even by spitting. Venom is the weaponized chemistry used in the animal kingdom. In any list of the world's most venomous animals, snakes often get top billing. But venom is used by many other species, and though it may not be intended for
location with the diffuser and defuse the device.
Goodbye, fellas. Oh.
Humans, we often fall foul of these nasty toxins by strolling or swimming in the wrong place. Which are the most dangerous of all? Let's find out in this episode of the infographic show, Deadliest Animal Venom. We've done our research to bring you a list of the top 10 most deadly animal venoms, and we've rated them based on how many people have been killed after being bitten, as well as how powerful the venom actually is. Let's take a look. Number 10, the fugu fish. The fugu fish is a puffer fish eaten as a delicacy in a number of Asian countries, most notably in Japan. But this fish also comes with a nasty toxin known as a tetrodotoxin, which is removed during preparation. The restaurant preparation of fugu is strictly controlled by law in Japan and several other countries. And
lately, I've been selective about what I eat. This Beneful Select 10 has 10 amazing ingredients.
With real beef plus accents of sunflower oil and apples, suddenly your dog's a health nut.
Fuel me would have been all over that.
Beneful Select 10. 10 ingredients, one thoughtful recipe.
Skip the latest Call of Duty? Then you have no idea about the biggest threat hanging over our heads right now.
Swish, swish, swish. All the time.
Bombardment is the act of attacking a planet's surface with an inert projectile, where the destructive force...
¡No me importa! ¡Muerte!
energy of the projectile impacting at very high velocities. That's an overly complicated way of saying hold an object up high enough and drop it, and it's going to do some damage. In fact, these rods from space would be hitting the ground at Mach 10. To translate, a Mach is equivalent to the speed of sound, which at sea level is 770 miles per hour or 343 meters per second. Mach 10 then is 10 times that speed, 7,700 miles per hour or 3,430 meters per second if you are metrically inclined. But similar to figuring out the destructive force of Majora's Moon, we need to know how massive these rods are before we can make the call on how deadly they are. Back in 2003, the United States Air Force proposed schematics for a kinetic bombardment system, similar to what's depicted in COD Ghosts. The falling rods were to be made of tungsten and measure 6 meters long and 0.3 meters wide. The reason for choosing tungsten is that it's one of the densest elements known to man, or at least one of the densest without having a stupid name like seaborgium or dubstepnium. In other words, more mass for every inch of your rod. And while we're on the subject of massive rods, the reason they're rods and not, say, spheres or tungsten cubes is that their narrow structure and long shape reduces the friction they'll experience falling through Earth's atmosphere, meaning more energy and penetrating power when they hit the Earth. In the end, more destruction and the possibility of obliterating underground bunkers. Anyway, measuring the mass of these rods, I need to stop saying that I'm playing around with rods. Each one impacting the ground would equal anywhere between 10 to 120 tons of TNT. 120 tons of TNT is certainly a lot, but to put that in perspective, it's about 1,000 times less powerful than the atomic bombs dropped on Japan.
Eliminate the terrorists.